Welcome to the Bourbon Van. I'm Phil.
I'm Julie. ECBP is back.
Thank goodness. Batch A123.
We keep stacking them up.
We do. We've got a lot of Elijah Craig barrel proof in the house. Luckily for us here in Oregon, it is readily available. We know it's not super available out there in the world, but from batch to batch, seems like everybody's got a favorite and a least favorite.
Yep.
B520, which was my favorite, and as you know, they release 3 batches a year. The A batch in January, the B batch in May, and the C batch in September. And they're polarizing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happens from batch to batch, but the B range tends to be my favorite. Mm-hmm. I know last year you liked the A specifically, so we're very excited about trying this year's A batch.
Absolutely, yeah, and they vary so much from batch to batch in terms of proof, but they are always 12 years aged. They're always non-chill filtered, and in my opinion, they really are always delicious, even though there are some ups and downs. But yeah, like you said, A122 was my favorite batch of Elijah Craig barrel proof last year. It went on our end of year list. And then another channel who I have great respect for named it one of their most disappointing whiskeys of the year.
So the last couple of years, the proof has been a little bit lower than what we're used to for ECBP.
Yeah, absolutely. This batch is actually the highest proof since C920. It's 125.6 proof. So the last couple batches been a little bit lower. So if you're looking for a little bang for your buck, I think we might have it here, and we're just going to do a little tasting today. We're not going to compare it to anything. Just want to know how it hits our palates and offer some tasting notes. So we can't really tell you to buy or not to buy this. We're just going to tell you that we always buy it, and we'll let you know what we think about it.
So first off, before we get to the nose, the color is just always beautiful on these.
Always beautiful.
It smells like a barrel proofer.
Sure does.
It's got a nice sugary oak to it. Like there's nice oak in there, but that sugar is like first and foremost.
Yeah, expectations met on the nose here. I'm not getting a ton of the raisin. Sometimes I get that lower quality chocolate covered peanut nose on ECBP stuff. Not really getting that here.
ECBP is fun for me because depending on the day, I could either love it or I could just give it away.
Well, let's taste this and see if you're keeping it. Cheers. They got every ounce of 125.6 proof in there, didn't they?
Well, my initial thought was that sweet oakiness, super forefront, so delicious, tinge of bitterness, and then that went away. So it was kind of a little bit of a roller coaster ride with just kind of a nice, sweet finish.
Boy, it ends with heat, though. That is a very warm whiskey. It's beginners beware on this one, I would say. Boy, the nose actually gets better and better. And these have been sitting for at least 30 minutes opening up for us. The bottle was already open today as well. So these have been sitting with some oxygen getting in there. And I'm glad that they were, because it might have been overwhelming if we just poured them and started drinking them.
I'm getting a little bit of that raisin note that you talked about in the intro. That's coming through about mid to late palate for me. It does have a not a lot of a chocolate note to it, but on the finish, I'm getting just a hint of that chocolate.
And it's not the cheap chocolate that you sometimes get. It's a better quality milk chocolate. And that probably sounds like an insane tasting note, but
there's definitely a difference.
I can't describe it any other way. I don't have the words for it. Wow, it coats incredibly well. There is like a cherry fruit on the finish coming through now. Cherry and vanilla. This is an intense whiskey. Is this as intense for you? I feel like I'm about to sweat over here.
I don't know. I think that this glass is bourbon.
I agree.
Like, the flavors are bourbon.
Sure.
There's nothing crazy about drinking this. Those flavors don't jump out at you in crazy ways like, oh man, there was a punch of citrus or there was a punch of this. Everything is just bourbon in this glass. There's no surprises.
It's distinctive in that it's exactly what you expect.
Yeah.
There is a bite to it, but I don't mind it because it offsets the sweetness. I will say that this is the type of glass, and there's not a ton of them out there, but this is the type of whiskey that I would drink with an ice cube out of a rocks glass, because you're getting a ton of aroma no matter what. The flavors will change as you work your way down. And we don't say it enough, but the best whiskey is the one that's in your glass. It's the one that you like. and the best way to drink it is whatever way that you like to drink it.
Right.
And that's why I actually brought some water with, because I tried this whiskey a couple days ago and decided that a couple drops of water might be the right idea for this one. I think I've discovered that I like 3 to 4 drops of water in
Just
this.
to open up some of those flavors.
Exactly, and to offset some of the bite. So some of you are horrified by this, others of you will cheer us. This is a divisive thing that I've just done, but I put 3 drops of water in there. Would you like any?
Well, what if I keep mine as a baseline and then we try yours?
Sure, absolutely. I will say that there's a very nice caramel that's starting to bubble up as I've been sitting here.
Yeah.
The finish on this is very good. It lasts an eternity, as ECBP you would expect it to. It doesn't always, but this one seems to really be hitting the mark there on the finish.
And the more that I drink this, that bitterness does go away. That heat builds for sure. I have a nice Kentucky hug, but that bitterness I got that on that first, second sip, that no longer is part of this drink anymore. It is settling in a little bit more.
And speaking of settling in, that really worked for me, because I think it didn't make it any thinner. It actually coats my tongue really nice. It opened up the aroma.
Yeah, the
a little
nose
bit.
smells better.
And now on the palate, I'm getting a lot of raisin, which I didn't get at all before. It was a little bit overwhelming. So just a couple of drops of water, 3 drops of water, made a drastic change in there.
It actually tastes a little bit like leather and tobacco now. I love experiments.
Wow. This bottle, by the way, cost us $70 locally. Price went up a couple of years ago, but it was only $65, I think, before that. So honestly, ECBP is still one of the best values in bourbon. It continues to be. And it's one of those whiskeys that if you're a bourbon fan and you've never tried it, you really need to.
Yeah.
In my mind, it's an important whiskey in the bourbon community, because so many of us ultimately discovered our love of whiskey because of it. So if you haven't tried ECBP yet, I think it's absolutely worth seeking out. And this batch, while warm, I think with a little bit of water, even if you are fairly new to bourbon and looking for new flavors, I don't think it's the end of the world. A little water or an ice cube, and I think you're still going to get an amazing experience from this bottle.
I do think that the water opened up the flavors a lot more. My complaint about this one during this tasting is that the flavors were a bit muted. I said that they were pure bourbon flavors, and they totally are. There's just nothing super exciting about that sip. Adding those couple drops did open up those flavors. So even though there's still those beautiful bourbon flavors, you can kind of separate them and taste them, and they're almost a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, when you said muted, my thought immediately went to the heat was overwhelming some of the flavor, and a couple of drops of water changed that radically. I really think that it's a very good whiskey. I think it's drink it the way that you like it to get the most out of it. But as per usual, ECBP, bang for your buck. This batch here, 125.6 proof, 12 years age, non-chill filtered. It's all this stuff that ECBP fans, and call them purists, I guess, really want. And I'm thrilled with it. I think it's great, and I liked it before we put water in it. Now I love it.
Yeah, and I'm excited to try the 3 batches side by side this year, because you always get a little bit clouded about just drinking the one. You're like, oh, I like it. And then you drink the next one, you're like, oh, I like it, or I didn't like it. And I always like to see which one really does top the list at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that this is, with the water added, one of the better batches that I've had of ECBP. But again, I like them all. I'm a fanboy. What can I say? So let us know out there, have you had A123 yet? What do you think of it? Where do you think that it stands in the pantheon of ECBP whiskeys? And from wherever we are.
To wherever you are.
Cheers.
Cheers. Not a bad way to start off the year.
Oh, no, it's not.
Ooh, marshmallow.
Ooh.